You're listening to the Karmic Mirror podcast, where we explore the wisdom tucked within the layers of the self-help world.
Together, we bridge the gap between esoteric teachings and practical tools for everyday life, with self-love and personal growth at the heart of each conversation.
Whether you're a seasoned seeker or just beginning your path, join us and uncover the magic within and around you.
Welcome to another episode of Karmic Mirror. Today, we are so excited to be talking about channeling, magic, and the art of trusting the woman within. We're welcoming a guest who walks with roots in the earth and messages from beyond, Liz Pratt. Hi, Liz. How are you?
Hi, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you.
For the inside scoop, we have already been talking, gosh, maybe 20, 30 minutes, and we're like, should we just hit record? Because energy is just flowing, and I can't wait for you all to hear the continued conversation. A little bit more about Liz is that she's an herbalist, a witch, and an intuitive channel whose work invites women to come home to themselves. She helps us make space for magic by helping women remember what the world so often asks them to forget, their own sacred power. Through ritual, herbs, and deep listening, Liz guides us back to our inner altar, where healing is holy and everyday life can be a spell. So light a candle, sip your chamomile, and prepare to meet the part of you that already knows. How Liz was introduced into our ethos was by way of Women's Walk, by way of Womb Spa, by way of the open house. Liz had done her herbal coven, and I was a participant. And she stepped up there, and it was so impactful to me. She said, "Hi, everyone. I'm Liz. I'm a witch." And that's all I needed. And I think afterwards, I was calling Michelle, like, "You're not going to believe where I was just at. I think I found my community here." And Liz, can you also share, because I've since shared you that story,
Yeah.
and just like your process with the witch. And also, I guess I should fast forward just a little bit before diving in, that Liz and I also joined a held healers group together. And then when we were going to get together, she asked me for a ride, and she lives across the street from me. I've lived here about a year,
I
and
love
we've
that.
never ran into each other. And
Right.
that was just such a beautiful connection and has been. And that is how Liz got on our radar. And so I can speak to some of the work that she's done for me, some of the products and blessings that she's given me.
Liz, before we jump into everything again, before we jump back in, let's just get to know you a little bit more astrologically, cosmically, with your sun, moon, and rising.
Oh, I love this. So I have Sun in Aries in the 10th house, and my rising sign is Cancer. And then my moon is also in Cancer in the 12th house. And I used to look at astrology just for the sun sign, and I was like, I don't really feel like an Aries.
Mhm.
And then when I discovered my moon and rising, I was like, oh, that's me.
Yeah,
Homebody, crabby, love the moon. That's me.
yeah, yeah. And also in your 12th house, behind the scenes, like on subconscious,
Yeah.
how does that show up for you? I'm so curious.
So that has been kind of the driving force behind my workshop, Herbal Coven. So part of that workshop, we talk about herbs and we create things with herbs, but I also do a channeled meditation specifically for the subconscious. So it's helping people remove these subconscious blocks in order to step more fearlessly into life or to love themselves a little deeper or try to move from lack to abundance mindset, depending on whatever theme I'm going over in the coven. So as soon as I heard subconscious, like when I was doing all my research and kind of trying to figure out my natal chart, I was like, yes, that makes
Hmm.
so much sense. I need a lot, like a good amount of isolation just to process, like process things. And then also, Um, I am a channel and I'm very interested in past lives. So when I was learning that like the 12th house is kind of that thin veil
Hmm.
between worlds, I was like, oh, this makes so much sense. Because if you just look at my sun sign or like I'm Aries in the 10th house, like that's very um go-getter, very leader, very it's an initiator. And while I do feel like that, it just I'm also like very like I move slow and I'm in touch with
Hmm.
my feelings and I need time to process. So
Yeah, yeah. And I wonder if that Aries sun, like 10th house energy, like your literal public facing life, how you make a living in the world is where your fire sign is. And Aries is so fiery. I know your oils, your products are fireside healing, and I love that. That's one of the first things that I thought when I saw Aries. But also it makes me think of having that same type of energy, that Aries fire of like initiating things and putting things into action, but doing it under the surface.
yes,
Right?
yeah,
Like that's what it feels
yeah.
like. Like I'm gonna subtly like just put a
Mhm.
fire under you in a way that you're not even gonna like it's a cozy one.
Right.
Oh, that's the
Exactly.
best way to say
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Yeah.
I also have to say that my husband is an Aries sun sign in the 10th house and his rising is Cancer.
Wait, that's so cool.
Yeah, yeah.
Love
I love
this.
it. Yeah,
And then
yeah.
Liz, you should
Amazing.
also say that your daughter and your husband are Aries suns
Oh
as
Yes,
my
we're both
gosh,
Aries
so
sun.
fiery.
Too much fire, you guys. It's an intense household. My husband is like Aries rising too, so he's just
well.
like very Aries with a Capricorn moon.
Look
Like,
at Michelle,
God
not to
bless
laugh. We
him.
both just start laughing. It's
Yeah, because I happen to just really love the Aries energy, but I
Mhm.
have had to get through my own shit in order to fully appreciate all that is Aries. And now at this stage in my life, I find myself drawn to people like women Aries. I used to always say, like, if I had a little girl, I want an Aries girl because I feel like she'd just be like a wild, like little badass, just like, fire sign. And I don't know why I always thought that, but when I would meet other Aries women, there is this like intense, it's not intense. It's like just very sure of yourself energy. Like that's how I perceive it, just in my power kind of energy that I always sense when I meet Aries women. And so I remember it's funny, like I can think back years ago where I would feel a little bit intimidated by it. And then I've like grown to love it because I've been in this relationship with someone who has a lot of those qualities that like I said, gotten through my own crap.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you for saying that too, because I've actually been denied a job for being an Aries before. Would you believe it? I was 18 years old and I wanted to work at this store called Pearls of Wisdom in my hometown of Columbus, Ohio. It was like a new age crystal shop. They did psychic readings. So truly, like that's where I should, I
Yeah.
gravitated right towards it. And I remember like walking in and being like, "Can I have a job application?" And the woman looked at me and she goes, "Well, what's your sign?" And I was like, "I'm an Aries." And she looked at me like in kind of like a look of
oh.
horror and was like, "Well, that's just not going to work." I don't remember. She was like, "We have a lot of like earth signs and what, and then that's just not going to work for us." And so she didn't even let me fill out the
Oh my
application.
God.
And
Oh, look at this. And all you're doing is looking for a home to land in, to explore. We talked about, Liz, that there was a narrative around being sensitive that wasn't quote unquote good in my household and as a Pisces
Mm,
sun. So that's what I think about too, is like the way we're told how we're built is quote unquote wrong, or you don't fit in here, right? And
yeah.
she may have had a valid point at the time, but she's not like sitting there,
that's
explaining like,
right.
well, maybe
Yeah.
you could use your Aries energy here. Maybe you could go somewhere else. Like, right?
Yeah.
But
I feel like if
crazy.
I were building a team, I would want an Aries on my team always because like
No.
that's like your star player.
Yeah.
Anyways, I love all of this. Also, pros of wisdom. You're like, I have a lot of Cancer in my chart. Like, I am the pearl of wisdom lady.
Right?
I am the pearl of wisdom. Your
I love
rising and your moon are again? Cancer and
Cancer.
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 Okay.
Mhm.
hmm
Oh, I love that. I can't wait to see. Like, I love knowing this up front because then it just gives you more depth, or I don't know, to as the conversation goes on. But I also want to know about your human design.
Yeah, so I'm like just beginning to understand human design. I'm opening that door thanks to Allie. So I'm a 3/5. I'm like the great life
Mhm.
experimenter, like Allie. I'm an emotional authority, which oh, let me tell you, learning about the emotional authority was like very healing, very affirming. Just tears for days when I was reading about that. I was like, I know I do have this emotional wave. Thank you. I'm not crazy.
What brought you to tears during that? What were the feelings?
It was actually the term emotional wave because when I was a
Mm.
child, I really would feel like it was a wave. And I would try to recognize, because I have ADHD, so I'm not good with details, but I'm great with pattern recognition. And I started
Mm.
to notice patterns around when I would hit really emotional lows. And I was a lot more sensitive than really like any other kid I knew. And I seem to be able to like feel into levels that like other kids just couldn't really touch. And it was very isolating. And my parents were both, um, and I don't know like if they are emotional authorities or not emotional authorities, but they hid their emotions and then also, demonized emotions, which is, the case for a lot of our households, right? Because when people don't understand sensitivities, they tend to like, want to shut it in the closet and not talk about it. So I would, do these things where I would cry, like wake up in the morning and cry and not want to go to school. And I would make up that I had stomach ache or something like that. But as I went from, adolescence to into, I would say like college, like into young adulthood, I would start to measure like, okay, is it always in the winter when I hit these lows? Is there a rhyme or reason
Mm.
to it? And it seemed like it was like every few weeks out of nowhere, I would be like, oh, I feel sad, or oh, I feel uncomfortable, or oh, I feel really good. And so I would like visualize it almost as this like wave that was coming towards me. And I was like, ugh. At the time, though, I would think like, oh, it's depression. I just have depression. There's something wrong with my brain. Now I realize
Mhm.
like, no, it's actually my emotions were trying to tell me things.
Yeah. That's the thing when people feel, I try not to push areas of human design on those that I talk about it with. So I try to ask, where do you feel called? However, when I see that people are emotional authorities, insert image of me just like slowly sliding some information their way because it's been so impactful for me and Michelle, as you
Yeah.
know, as well. And again, I feel as though I manifested Liz's friendship as well because neighbor, having another 3/5 emotional, it's really been helpful for me on my journey to be in this community. And I won't speak for Liz, but I know in a past episode, Michelle, you were talking about this concept of transactional energy, and we were talking about it not just being monetarily. And that's how my relationship feels with Liz because we just give back and forth this energy. And while she said, I don't know that much because
Mhm.
kind of from Allie, also in Liz's world with the tarot and the channeling and the intuition and the rituals that she does, I'm getting just by being friends with her and experiencing her life and her exposing it to me, I'm now also getting
Mhm.
this exposure and learning about new areas. And
Oh, I think we manifested each other on that one because I will say I'm a non-specific manifester. But I really wanted community. I moved here with my husband and Chloe when she was just a baby. We moved from Columbus, Ohio. We had been living in the city before, but went to Columbus while I was pregnant to be closer to my family. And I honestly realized like, gosh, I'm different than I was when I used to live here. It doesn't feel good. Jimmy hated it. He's an East Coaster from the word go. So he wanted out of Ohio. But when we moved here, I didn't know anyone and I was so longing for community and so longing to make friends with people who understood me and who I didn't have to like hide myself around, but actually, wanted to know more about my gifts or, really saw me and my authenticity. And that's over time, I mean, that's just what happened. And so like when I met Allie, I was like, oh my gosh.
I was like fangirling almost at first on our first Health Healers call when we had to introduce each other, ourselves to the group. I was like, Liz, I'm so excited you're here. I've been talking about you behind your back in the best way about you being a witch. So
That made my day. Yeah.
And as always with a lot of our gifts as well, it's really cool as a 3/5 to learn. Well, I would say more as that three because Michelle brings all of these gifts, and I know we'll dive into it, but she knows a lot about goddesses and Greek mythology and nutrition and herbalism, which is why I said, "Oh, you guys are just gonna love each other." But it feels higher than aligned that we're just neighbors. It feels like a really good synergy between mine and Michelle's world as well, which is ideal for who we love to have on here
Mhm.
as well.
Oh,
I love that
amazing.
you're a non-specific manifester because so am I, but also non-specific, you're like, I'm calling in community, and then it's like, okay, well, Allie's gonna move across the street from you. Like you're gonna meet all of these women and also like here's a neighbor. I didn't know what it
Mhm.
was gonna look like, but also like so that's so
And
wonderful.
it, yeah, and it goes, these are the beautiful areas where I understand hesitation from others, and I've been there where, oh, it's just so easy. It's so easy to call in these things,
Mhm.
or my life doesn't work like that, or how did that happen? And the other thing to consider too is I was also calling
Mhm.
that in. So the vibration of these energies and the attraction there, and we attract people who are on our same frequencies. And then you just start to see more things. Liz just connected me with the yoga studio next door, and I'm going to start volunteering there. And so I was sharing with her when, or maybe it was one of my coaching clients, it as an example of I knew what I wanted. I mean, I can do yoga myself at home. But there has been this inner, which is oftentimes when I manifest, it's just this little calling for me that I know I want something and I think I forget about it almost because it doesn't seem possible. But therein lies that sneaky little surrender piece in manifestation that we decide the what and let the universe take care of the how. And specifically in community, I was wanting to be introduced to a yoga facility. And how cool, there's one right next door. Just financially, right now, I can't swing that.
Mhm.
But again, that's that transactional
Yeah.
going round and round.
Mhm.
And Yoga Mechanics is an amazing community too. Like that I've met most of my friends through functions and workshops like our friend Connie's circle, women's circle. So it's just amazing. It's too cool.
I feel like you guys have something really cool going on over there in your little pocket of New Jersey. It's so much building. But I just have to reflect back that the emotional wave, isn't it so fascinating as a child to, one, having this strong Cancer placement, this already moon connected sign in your 12th house and your rising, your moon, and intuitively as a child, like knowing to visualize this wave, to see it in that way, and how, yeah, something you said about recognizing patterns made me think of how
Mhm.
many adults, how much of our time in this space and wellness and self-development and all of these, healing and growth, are we trying to train our brain to look for patterns? Because that's the key. And you came
Yeah.
here understanding this, and perhaps, the spaces around you had not quite reached, right? Like maybe you were ahead of the game, or you were, and so in the sense, in that way.
Yeah.
And I just think that's so really, really profound. And it was really beautiful. And I don't know if that's how you experienced it, as like, this was so beautiful, but maybe now at this stage, but it feels really powerful to know that as a child. And I think kids are so deeply intuitive.
Absolutely.
And because of all of the reasons that are totally okay and here to just happen, I think people can rush to cover the intuition or what they already know, or to, ease something for them based on their own feelings, versus letting this child, know what they knew already, what you came here knowing, which was, when these big emotions come, I'm already teaching myself to see it as a wave, as to visualize this kind of cleansing water. And I don't know, something about that just so really beautiful and deep.
Yeah, and what's interesting too is, and I think my 12th house, because I have stellium in the 12th house, I think it plays into that because there was always, I always felt like there were two versions of me happening at the same time. So yes, I did understand. I saw the patterns. I knew this was like an emotional wave, and I would almost like when I would have, because I had big feelings as a kid, which like kids have big feelings. And, as caregivers, we have to teach them how to process their emotions. My parents didn't necessarily learn how to process their own emotions, right?
Yeah.
They were raised in the 60s in huge families. There just wasn't any room.
Yeah.
But so I recognized that it was natural. I also felt it was bad because I was like
Mm,
learning that from outside of myself. Like you're too much, you're too sensitive, which is often what we hear. And then, coming back like, wow, I think this is really natural. And I would see my mom was very open with her emotions. So when she would cry in front of us. And then like afterwards be like, mommy just had big feeling, or mommy's just feeling sensitive. So I was like, okay, so it's okay to cry,
yeah.
but it's not okay to do it too much. And if
Mm,
you do it too much, there might be something wrong with you. And so I had these parallels like working at the same time. And then I think there was this period of kind of like rock bottom for me, which is when I was living in New York before I got pregnant and like before the pandemic, where I had forgotten all of the things that I knew
mm,
intuitively to be true. Like I was like, this isn't an emotional wave. There's really something wrong with me. There's like,
mm,
all of these things are happening. Um, but then I realize now looking back that it was because my nervous system
yeah.
was so out of whack and so unsettled that when I started gravitating towards certain herbs, which were in fact nervines that I did not even know because I wasn't doing
Yeah.
research, I was just grabbing and like, this looks good, this looks good. Now that my nervous system is settled again and in a good place, I'm like, oh,
Mhm.
do you know what I mean? And like it took,
Yeah.
like spirit was always guiding me back to, these things that like were helping me on my journey. It was like, okay, you're all out of whack. You're all over the place. Come back down. Come
Hmm.
over here and now you can process.
And how it's just so beautifully aligned, especially with that three line as well. The verbiage you're using, and we don't have to pigeonhole experiences, behaviors into just your three line. That shows up in many places in your charts, but that recognizing patterns
Mhm.
and building it up. So when it got to the point where you're like, I know that that's not what this is because I've lived that, I've experienced it, it's bumped into me, and it's very three line where it's like three lines they'll say will tell everybody they're doing it wrong because they know you're doing it wrong, right? And that's just the simple way of saying it. Of course, we all
Yeah.
have our own unique journeys, but Michelle's probably smiling because she's married to a 3-5 as well. I don't know what's coming up for you when you smile, Michelle, a
No,
story
no,
or
no.
no?
I'm just
Okay.
taking it in.
I always assume I'm like, she's got a story that
I
I'm
know
gonna
you.
love.
No, no. I was just taking it and listening. And
Yeah. Liz, what were you gonna say? Sorry.
No, I forgot that Michelle's husband was a 3 line or 3-5.
Mhm.
So
yeah,
cool.
emotional authority as well.
That is so cool.
Yeah, yeah. I love all the synergy. Okay, so you are an herbalist, a witch, a channel. These three different roles are super potent in their own way and together. So what is the kind of connecting thread for you that brings these together?
I think the connecting thread for me is that I'm really I'm like a daughter of the earth, right?
Mm,
So I am so aware because I'm a channel and I channel Um, Deities. I have a very wide channel, I've been told, and I'm starting to understand it. So dark feminine deities, but also
Mhm.
plants and the spirit of plants. So the channeling, like why I'm drawn to certain things, it's always because I'm listening to that inner voice, intuition,
Yeah.
my connection with God or goddess, that's one that has been constant since I was a small child. Is like I'm very aware that I have a direct line, a connection
Mm.
with the divine. So when I start listening to that, it brings me to herbs and it brings me to plants. And it used to show up in like I just loved tea when I was young.
Hmm.
Just loved, and I would kind of collect them. I mean, they would be the bagged teas, but
Yeah.
I would just like, I just want to get all of them. And then for
I love that. I'm like, you've got
it's
a
so
shrine
great.
in your
I
bedroom with
did.
tea bags.
I did. My parents would be
Yeah.
like, "We don't need all this tea," and I was like, "Shut your filthy mouths. We do. We need all the tea." And then,
You're so new.
right. And then, with being a witch, I mean, we're working with natural elements. We're working with water, fire, earth, ether, air. So many rituals and spells that I do are with herbs, with
Hmm.
plants. I'm using them to create the magic that I want to bring in. And then again, channeling is like what is connecting all of them. The being that I channel most often, or who I feel like the most connected to, and was the first that I channeled openly for, for other people, is Hecate.
Hmm.
And Hecate is the most known as the Greek goddess of magic and witchcraft, but she also resides over liminal spaces, and she is the torchbearer, the gatekeeper, the one with the keys. So she's really the one who, whether we know we're working with her or not, she helps guide us through these periods of darkness when we have to, when something in life isn't going our way and we have to grieve.
Hmm.
Or we feel depressed, meaning that it's really time for us to come back to ourselves, look within us and say like, well, what's not working? What feels off? And she's also resides over transition as well. So
Hmm.
she takes us through this full experience of like, we feel good. Yes, she's there, but when we start to be like, oh, I don't know if this is working, I think it's time to change. She's that one who takes our hand and kind of guides us through
Yeah.
that transition. And then she also presides over healing herbs and
Hmm.
like mugwort. Mugwort
Hmm.
and lemon balm are like the two, and lavender as well. So like the three that I really connect with her. So it's funny, I feel like I was almost in denial that I was working with her. So I think I started working with her in 2020 more consciously. I was, it was the pandemic. I had an opportunity. At the time, we had, my parents owned a lake house in Vermont that was like out in the middle of nowhere, super rural, all the way up north on the border of Canada. My husband and I loaded our car with our two cats and went up there and stayed for about 5 months. And so I was given this opportunity to be quiet, be still, and be in
Hmm.
nature. And I hadn't been in nature in a long time because I was living in Manhattan, really disconnected from pretty much everything I needed to like be a calm, collected, cool human being. Like I was like, New York City is like not my element.
Yeah.
I just was the only one I think who didn't know that. I was there for like 7 years, and I'm pretty sure like the moment I got there, I was like, oh, I don't know if this is for me, but I'm just gonna keep this real hidden.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, because if you can make it there, you can make it
I
anywhere. So you
know.
got to make
And then
it,
I was
or
like,
else
what?
what does that say
Yeah,
about you, right?
right. Oh my God, so dumb. It
Yeah.
was like haunting me. Um, but so I was up there. I started a little herb garden. I was reconnecting with
Mm.
my tarot cards, which I hadn't used in years and years. And I would have dreams about I would see a woman in like a black veil with kind of a moon bow over her head,
Mm.
and she was
Mm.
always like beckoning me. And I would be like, who is that? And I would like I would like Google and she would come up and I'd be like, no, that can't be it.
No.
Moving right, nah, not a witch. Get out of here. Moving right along. And then it wasn't until I think, oh gosh, this would have been last spring. I won a channeling session with this amazing channel, super expensive, always booked. I would not have had the
Wow.
means to like meet with this woman, but I won
Yeah.
like her Instagram competition. And she was like, "Oh, you're a witch." And she was like, "Do you know that you work with Hecate? Like she's been with you since you were a child. Do you know that?" And I was like, I guess I do. Like it was like, yes, it was news, but it was also like, oh, you caught up to me.
Mm.
I surrender.
She was like, hello.
She's like, I've been here. You talk to the moon all the time. Who did you think you were talking to?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's so cool. And I was going to ask kind of like what were the moments that kind of shifted you? Like you talked a little bit earlier about your rock bottom and noticing all of your nervous system, needing so much tending and all of these little nudges pushing you. But is there anything, yeah, anything that stands out that really kind of put you onto this path?
Yeah, there were just no other options at that
Yeah.
point. Because I tried to deny who I was my entire life. And I've had so many jobs. And the thing is I was always really good at these jobs, right? Like,
Mhm.
and I project manager, customer service manager, team lead, and all different kinds of like, sometimes they were startups, tech companies, interior design companies, but I always saw the same themes, which was abuse of power and
Mm,
poor leadership,
yeah.
poor management, and a real divide between CEOs, upper management, and the people who were actually doing all of the work. So it
Yeah.
was like time and time again, the universe was like, you're a leader. I don't know if
Yeah. Yeah.
you realize this, but like this is draining you. You
Yeah.
need to get out. And like these jobs would eventually fall apart because I would get to the point where I would be so taken advantage of, so drained.
Liz, do you remember your life theme?
Let me see, I can bring it up.
It's about, I want to say it's about creating new systems or something like that, which
That feels pretty.
we'll
Yeah.
see.
Okay, while you look that up, first thoughts that always come up when Hecate comes up is the story of Persephone and Hades. And so as you were talking, I kept thinking of I never perceived her to be this like all nurturing, like soft tender, but like I'm guiding you, I'm caring for you, and I'm walking you through because the story with Persephone, and this is why I was laughing because I wanted to say it earlier, but when you said abuse of power, I was like, well, yeah, that's the story of Persephone and Hades. It's a total abuse of power of this girl who was literally stolen, taken, given away from her mother, tricked. And Hecate was the goddess that really walked her through that, helped her find a home in the underworld and be able to, like I don't know,
Yeah.
maybe I'm butchering the story,
No,
but it was a total abuse of power, and so it all makes perfect
it does.
connection.
And I didn't even put that together. Thank you.
I was like, oh, there it is. Okay, that's why, because that's what I think of. I mean, this
Yeah.
is the ultimate abuse of power, is
Mhm.
my father basically agreed to give me to my uncle to marry me off, steal me from my, like trick me,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
the only other woman, or not woman, but the only other goddess there to help me through this horrifying, traumatic experience is Hecate, who's empowering me in my way, and it makes total sense.
Yeah. Oh my God. I love that. I didn't even see that before. I was just like, I gotta get out of this.
Well, that's a
It's so
five line for
amazing.
you, and you have that.
Yeah.
That's the skill you give and you give to me too in
Mhm.
friendship. And when you pull things out, us five lines just need to receive the five lineness
Yeah.
of others to
That's
make those full
incredible.
circles.
But I think like for me and so many others, it was the pandemic, right? Like I was giving so much to
Mhm.
this one job I had, which turned out it was I worked for a subsidiary of a huge, very well-known company. And I thought we were going to have this amazing little tech company and this was a great startup and I was putting so much effort into it. And I didn't know until later that they were actually just using us to mine people's data and it was never going to be a real company. Like so messed
So
up.
wild.
But the pandemic happened and so
Yeah.
we shut down. I was given a great severance actually. So there was this period of like, I really don't have to do anything. For the
Hmm.
first time in a long time, I could be unemployed and like just come back to myself. And
Yeah.
that's when she got to me, man. She was like, oh, good. She
Yeah.
made space.
Yeah. I love that.
My life theme. So I have right angle cross of tension.
What does it say underneath when you open it up, like your life theme?
Speaking up and being unafraid to say things that sometimes might be unpopular and provocative. Yeah. Okay. That hits.
Yeah, I think when we were, it's just coming back full circle. I'll need to look into that one a little bit more. But I remember when we were talking about your life theme, sometimes, hello, karmic mirror, when you said it, I don't know that you were quite resonating with it. But for me, I was like, hello. And then knowing you're a 3/5, I can start to be like, yeah, but in this way, and in this way, and in this
Right.
way. And that's human design is that we hear it and we want to fit it in a box in
Hmm.
except as 3 lines we kind of have to let it unfold and see how we experience that, which is so nuanced.
Yeah.
But yeah, this whole
Mm.
world. Okay, keep going.
So while I was kind of in my rock bottom and I did start going to therapy, which I had seen one therapist when I was very young, like still in college. And she kind of ruined it for me, to be honest. She was
Mhm.
not a good therapist. And you know, if you've ever had one that's like a little problematic, like they can do some damage.
Mm.
So I saw this woman once and I was like, nah, no, I'm never going back to therapy. But then, you know, during this rock bottom where I just like wasn't alive. Like I didn't like anything in my life. I was really drifting away from all of my friends. I at the time, like the friends I had in the city, I didn't even like very much. Like, you know, I
Mhm.
just didn't feel like anything belonged to me. I was so, you know, very much in love with my now husband, and he wanted to stay in New York. So I was like, I gotta just, you know, just tough it out. But I was seeing a therapist and I was explaining to her you know, just like these dreams I have. Or I remember one time I was like, you know, like when you go to sleep, but you're not really asleep, and you just kind of sink into this like state of consciousness, like you're awake, but you're not. And then you just start like seeing people and they talk to you, and it's like you're dreaming, but you're not. And she was like, no, Liz, I don't. And she said, I'm not just blowing smoke up your ass. I think that you're really intuitive. She's like, I think you might be psychic, you should explore this. And
Yeah.
that therapist, she's just so incredible. She's just such a gift because I really don't know when I would have started taking this seriously if it didn't
Mm.
come from an actual therapist, right? Like
Yeah.
I was so guarded. I was so always worried that like, oh, I might just be crazy, you know, or like, oh, I have this wild imagination. And I'm a person, you know, I was like raised in the Midwest. I'm super
Hmm.
humble and I always need permission before, you know, I do things. So it was like she gave me this permission that at the time I still really felt like I needed. And then I was like, all right, Astrid, like let me pick up my tarot cards again and, you know, start
Yeah.
exploring it.
It's so true, right? We sometimes, if we can't see things for ourselves, we need the right people and spaces to mirror that back for us. And the life theme, what I do know to be true about life themes in human design is that, it's not something you try to do. It unfolds when you start living more in that alignment. And so it makes perfect sense that you would start to trust what you already knew.
Mhm.
That kind of life theme starts to come through a little bit more, like the ultimate goddess of standing up for and even advocating for yourself. Even
Yeah.
I think we consider when you hear the life theme, the cross of tension, we tend to think it's bigger, always going to be this big issue, or taking a stance. And sometimes it's really subtle. It's just like advocating for myself and not feeling comfortable living in New York City,
Yes.
in those subtle but very necessary ways. And I'm also curious to know how you describe channeling now to someone, because I don't know. I mean, my experience with channeling is through Mary Magdalene, because many people do channel her. So I've read a lot of books and they really, really resonate with me in a lot of ways. So I would love to know how that comes through for you. What does that look like, or how you would describe it to someone curious or just doesn't really know?
Yeah, great question. So I definitely want to start with everyone is a channel. We
Mm,
are all psychic beings. Some of us are just more open than others. And if channeling interests you and it excites you, it is for a reason, and it is because it is something to explore. And channeling takes many different forms. It's all very unique to who we are, just like we're all very complex. The ways that we channel can be different from, anyone else. So how I channel, it began on like with downloads. So downloads are like when a little bit of information kind of comes through bits by bits at a time. So it could come like I could have one download over the course of a week where it was just little bits of information starting to just come into my mind,
mm,
seemingly out of nowhere, or asking a question like in my own mind, wondering something, and then as the week goes on, starting to get those little bits of information without looking for it. It'll just appear, whether it's like something I see on social media or like a thought that comes through where like an aha, like, wait, I figured it out, or,
mhm,
through angel numbers. So that was the beginning of the channeling, and that would kind of work in tandem with reading tarot. So when I would start to read tarot, I worked with an amazing friend and mentor. Her name's Radonna Reed, and her whole philosophy was ditch the guidebook. Don't look at the guidebook. What are the cards telling you? And that's kind of like training wheels for your
yeah.
channeling, right?
Yep.
Staring at that card, what is being revealed to you? What stands out to you? What's coming through? Like that beginning of really trusting yourself. And now the channeling more looks like this is a really interesting thing. And I think I actually did this would happen when I was young. I just didn't know what it was. But it's my right leg, a part of my right leg gets goosebumps. It actually looks like there's like a handprint. Like it's like the energy is flowing up my leg on the right side. And then I receive this like flush of it really feels like a release of endorphins. It's like I just feel really good. And then information starts to come through. It's
Mhm,
mostly like images and an inner knowing. So I'm clairvoyant, and my
mhm,
abilities are probably about like 30% online. So it's like a mix of clairvoyance and then claircognizance, which is just
mm,
that inner knowing. So there's that,
When
and
you
then
say
with my
clairvoyance, that's the visual.
yeah, so
Okay.
clairvoyance is it's clear seeing.
mhm,
Claircognizance is clear knowing, which claircognizance, I love it. I love my gift, but that one is like the hardest one to prove. You know what I mean? They're like, how do you know what you know? And I'm like, I don't know, I just know.
Hmm.
Um,
People
and
looking, people looking for the explanations behind it, right? To make
right.
logic of something that is coming from spirit and or whatever you believe where they, yeah.
Exactly. And so now it's more of like I can go into meditative state and have the deities like speak through me to a degree. So they move a little bit faster. So sometimes they'll like speak through me, but there's a lot of like we're co-creating together, and there's a lot of trust that has to happen of like, and I'm still very much in my head, like, am I saying this? Is this going to ha come out of my mouth? That doesn't sound right,
yeah.
And like kind of stopping it a little bit. But that's where I am right now. And so I'll still sometimes receive downloads because I feel like there's so, especially the times that we're in, there's so much information that is wanting to come through. And I'm a
Mhm.
stay-at-home mom. I have my sweet little Chloe just clinging to me 24/7, so I can't always be like, I can't be
Yeah.
leaving
Yeah.
the channel,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And I like the divine, they don't always understand it. Like they don't really understand our like human responsibilities all the time. It's just like a knock. It's like, are you there? Like, I need to tell you something. And I'm like, no, I'm making macaroni and cheese right now. But like,
I think one of the cool, well, let me ask you this first.
yeah.
Someone is interested in having a channeling session with you. What does that look like?
So we either meet in person or on Zoom. It's about an hour, and it's a mix of like straight channeling and then a little bit of tarot cards to support. But I would ask
Mhm.
them to bring, any question, like a list of questions they might have, and then connect, and what comes through comes through. Yeah. Yeah.
I wanted to share the quick version of your work also. I think sometimes I'll just, well, Liz loves dreams. And
Yeah.
so I will sometimes just send her dreams. And I had this dream and I had asked her this question. I think I started it out like, am I a witch? Like, tell me what's going on here. And I just was reaching out to her. And then I've shared with a couple of people the audio and the visual of you had just pulled out your deck. And while you were listening to my voice note, you did a tarot card spread and reading and used your intuition to give me guidance in that area. And I don't want to use the words crazy, bananas.
I
Although in the
get
moment,
it.
you're like,
Yeah.
what is going on? And I have shared this with both of you. The first card, what is the six of what? It was the squabbling over the worms. Do you
Oh,
know
the
offhand?
five of wands.
Okay, Five of
Yeah.
Wands you were talking about, and that's significant because the visual is all of these birds squabbling over worms. And it was very relevant, right? There was more to the reading. There were very poignant times where I'm sitting, my desk is right by a window and a tree. And the major theme that was going on in my life was literally being spoken about on the phone. And these are different days apart. And there's this robin just continues to chill outside of my window with a worm in its mouth. And it's not just landing there. I mean, it's literally
Mhm.
staying there like, look at me, look
Yeah.
at me. And when that's days apart, right, you can logic it the first time. Then
Hmm.
when it comes back an hour or two later, you're like, oh, it could be the same bird. 3 days later, another bird coming was just that lingering energy. And I think
Yeah.
where your work is really impactful and inspiring because you pull out those things and then it just makes you more aware. And let's just say it's a coincidence, even if we don't believe that the birds are
Mhm.
messengers and all of those things, it's still a reminder back to Liz's work and the message that she was giving me. And that is just a beautiful story I want to share with people because I know sometimes with people it can be hard to say, well, what am I going to get out of working with a
Right.
channeler, or we really want to know the outcome. And sometimes it's hard to explain because sometimes it is just clarity in those moments. And what will come up for you post session sometimes
Yes.
is the really big, impactful things.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you
Mhm.
for sharing that.
Mhm.
I love what you said too, Ali, about she pulls these things up because it almost feels also very Aries to be like, I'm gonna like intuitively put these things in front of
Mhm.
you, and you have the free will to do what you will with them. You get to show up in here, but now you've seen it. Do you want to do something different? And I don't know if that even lands, but that's what it feels
Yes,
like.
yeah.
So when you channel and when you're in session, what do you do to protect your energy or prepare your energy? What is that? Is that
Yeah.
a ritual process? Yeah.
Yeah, so I have a couple oils that I use. So I anoint myself before session, and these are oils that I have created. So I use one that's called Divine Light that I channeled, and it's beautiful and it's got a bunch of protective herbs in it. So I mix that with another oil that my friend Connie Vigiletti, she made, which is like a more essential oil. So I get those together and I anoint my chakras. I do a little bit of a smoke cleanse just to cleanse. And then I take a couple deep breaths and really visualize like root system coming down,
Hmm.
grounding me into the earth. And then kind of coming out of my roots is just this like light that holds me and protects me. And I always call Hekate in as well. And like it
Mhm.
feels like with her, it's such a close relationship that because she's one of my main spirit guides. So it feels like she's always there. Because the first couple of sessions, I would get like nervous, right? And like forget to do
Mhm.
all these things and like
Yeah.
still feeling pretty protected and good because she's like, "Whoop." She's like, oh, you
Yeah.
know. But yeah,
Yeah.
I create a sacred space.
And then can we talk a little bit more? You brought up the oils,
Mm.
and so I know you also have those types of offerings as well.
Yeah, so I make intuitive or channeled face and body oils and then also face creams. And it's so interesting because what it started as a solution to a very practical problem that I was having. I was postpartum, my skin was just like out of control. I was red, dry, blotchy, and I was spending way too much on skincare and just like not seeing any results. Because,
Mhm.
like, you change a lot, like everything changes when you give birth. And I was also breastfeeding, so I was like very dry. And I got tired of buying stuff. I just got tired
Mhm.
of buying and tossing. And so serendipitously, I was on social media one day and it was like, make your own rose oil. And something I saw that and I was like, oh, I could do that. That looks like fun.
Mhm.
And so I bought some rose petals. I bought some oil. I think I did lavender oil and calendula oil too. So I picked these like three flowers. They just called to me, mixed them with oil. And then when it was really fun too because I did like the long infusion where you really infuse those things and you
Mhm.
wait like a good 8 weeks to use them.
Mhm.
So like every day I would come downstairs and like shake them or like talk to them. It was a really
Yeah.
exciting thing for me. And when it was all said and done, I think that I had a rare opportunity. It was like 4 or 5 hours where I was in the house by myself, which like never happens. So okay, I'm ready to like make these oils. And I had just bought a bunch of stuff from this
Mhm.
great place on Etsy. So I had, different carrier oils. I think I also got pomegranate seed oil. I had my infusions and I was like, all right, let's play. I turn
Three line in it. That's all I keep thinking about is just let me get all the things and just get in it
Yeah, I
and
was like,
start
I'm gonna heal
going.
my skin. Let's go.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
what I felt come through while I was creating this, and again, guys, at this point, I didn't think I was like working with anybody. Like I wasn't thinking about like that I'm in, channeling anything. I'm just vibing out. And so I took the rose oil, strained the roses out. I had this beautiful oil, and I looked up and I saw vitamin E oil, and then I also
Mhm.
had pomegranate seed oil, which is like sticky and dark and
Mhm.
so luxurious. And I was like, all right, let's do it. So I'm just like combining, like, and I'm not measuring either. Like I was just like dumping and stirring and then I poured it and I used it and it was felt really beautiful. So it ended up
Mhm.
being jojoba oil infused with pink rose petals with vitamin E oil and pomegranate seed oil. And so I started
Yeah.
using it and I was like, oh, this makes my skin feel beautiful. After a couple of
Mhm.
days, the redness was gone. Then, I'm realizing like I only have to apply this like once or twice and the hydration's there. And then I got so excited. And the thing is this feeling, because I want to make sure I mention this, the feeling I had when I was making this was just, I felt flirty and
Mhm.
sexy and excited and like happy.
Mhm.
And in a way that I really had not felt since like way before I got pregnant. Like just in my
Mhm.
body, I think I
Yeah.
put on like, I don't even know why. I put on like a fun dress, like while I was making this. So this is all very Venusian, right? Like I'm not
Yeah.
like, oh, I'm working with Aphrodite. Like I'm like just feeling it
Mhm.
out. And then I got so excited. I gave some to my husband who loved it, and then another friend. And then I was like, it just all hit me at once. I was like, this is Aphrodite. This is
Hmm.
Aphrodite. This is her oil. And then when I looked up like pomegranates, and because I know pomegranates is very Persephone, but there is some like Aphrodite as well. And then the roses. And I was like, this was that feeling I was in, was this Venusian energy. And so that's really how like fireside healing was born. And I just was like, well, I'm gonna trust it and I'm gonna make some more stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so cool. And I kept thinking postpartum, what, as you were describing the ingredients, I was like, oh, how luxurious to nurture and soothe and self-love on yourself with the rose and at this time, and just like giving yourself all of that medicine that you needed.
Yeah.
Feel most beautiful and radiant as, the goddess of love. I love that so much. That's super cool. And I know that you've done these workshops right at the womb spa, or like that's how you came on my radar through
Yeah.
Allie was, when she went, and I think if I recall, I think it was
Mhm.
mugwort, the first one that you did, which was really cool too. I think mugwort is also just such a woman's
Yes.
herb. I mean, anyone, but it's such a woman's herb. And I came across this Korean brand a few years back because it's also really popular in Korean culture, but we're doing mugwort soaks
Yeah.
in the bath. And I just thought that's so amazing. And there's just so much rich history in that. But I'd love to know more about your working with the womb spa. Do you feel like there's a connection in your offerings, that fits, into the space, or do you feel there's something with that kind of womb healing theme that really speaks to you?
Yeah, well, both. So I needed a lot of womb healing. I was wounded for a long time. And I don't think, I had never walked into a space like the womb spa before. And that says a lot because I had an internship long, long ago at a beautiful Kundalini and Universal Kabbalah space. It was called Nam Yoga, Universal Force Healing Center. And that was like a temple. And I loved it there and it really spoke to me. But the womb spa was the healing that I didn't realize I needed. And how I met Debbie. So I started going to women's circles there through my friend Stephanie Peralima. I know she's been a guest on Karmic Mirror before. She had her women's circles there, and she was like, "Come, you join me." So I went and I met Debbie, the owner of Florida Vita, the owner of the Womb Spa, and it was after I met her once, I came back and I offered her a sample of the Aphrodite oil. And then at the time, I had also made Isis cream, which was
Mm.
tallow, blue lotus oil, and honey mixed together. It's really
I
beautiful.
love
Yeah, it's
that.
beautiful
Yeah.
stuff. So I gave it to her, and I think maybe this was the third time we met because I just kept going to women's circle. Because who doesn't love a women's circle? You know what I mean? We all need them. And Debbie came up to me and she was like, I love your products and I want to open a space for you and I want you to do a pop-up here at Florida Vita. She's like, you can do
I love that.
anything that you want. And she didn't know at the time that like I had never done anything like that before and I wasn't even selling the products yet. Like I was just
Yeah.
experimenting in my kitchen. And so when I told her, I was like, well, I've never done anything. She was like, oh, really? Like, okay, well, let's do it. Like, figure it out. Then she gave me this amazing opportunity, which is a pop-up to host my products and then also do like a free event to get my name out
Mhm.
there and to meet more women who would like potentially like to work with me. And so I co-created the idea of talking about the medicinal properties of herbs and the spirits of herbs. And I say I co-created because I had no idea what to do and I meditated and they just started like coming through. And it was like,
Mhm.
that first channeling of like just we're going to show you which herbs you need to talk about. Don't even worry about it. Here's what you should be working with. So I
Yeah.
came out with, gosh, like 6 products, all channeled. And it was a beautiful experience. And then the next time I went, or the next time I was invited back, it was to do the live channeling, which is what Allie was a part of.
That was so beautiful. I think it was St. John's wort.
Yes.
And as my generator, I just know I came out of that session and did you know that St. John's wort when
Yeah.
I won't
Yeah.
go into it in depth, but that was my generator energy. And on the back end, I have been looking at what I'm putting into my body and on my body in a more holistic way. And as a three line, I know I can't just jump into all things. And again, why it felt so, there was so much synergy around meeting you and your workshops and getting to just digest as it comes. I use which oil do I use? I use it for my gua sha now,
It's
the
rosemary.
rosemary.
Yes, it's
Mm,
rosemary and calendula. It's a blend.
mhm.
Mhm.
And I never want
I
to,
love
what
that.
did you say about calendula? Don't say it.
Oh gosh, calendula.
And then I just was like, well, I'm just not saying it until I know
I just
it.
love the way it like calendula. I love how it like collapses on itself in the middle. I just think it's
Yes.
such a beautiful, beautiful word. But yeah, and that's I do have to make this like public service announcement. Skincare does not need to be complicated. The cleaner, the better. You can make it at home. Like just your body, your skin is the body's largest organ. So we got to be careful about what you're putting on it because that stuff that I like all the beautiful, very expensive brands I was using were like messing up my oil production and like I was overwashing my face and you don't need to do all that. Channeled or not, just
Yeah. How ironic is it that the massively oversaturated beauty industry sells women products that actually pull you further away from all of because they're hormone disruptors. So you're,
yes,
putting
yeah.
this on your skin, it's absorbing into your bloodstream, it's affecting your hormones, which then are affecting all of the major systems of your body.
Hmm.
And then where does it show up? In your cycle, in your womb.
Yes.
And by the
Yes.
time it reaches there, it's already gone through other aspects of our body and our functioning systems. And that's how it's indicating it. So it's just so fascinating to me, this like conundrum. And that's the truth is like everything is coming back to what you already knew intuitively, like
Mhm.
paring back and removing all of this, everything we've been told. And I think I want to know, are there any herbs that you're like right now in this season of your life? It feels like you've been kind of like really mixing into this role that you and into a lot of what you came here to do and express and be. And so are there any herbs that you're using right now that are really speaking to you?
Oh gosh, yes. I'm going to try to give you a short list. So, number one,
Mm,
mugwort. Mugwort is so beautiful for both the skin. It's anti-inflammatory. It has beautiful skin healing properties, and it's also a woman's herb, as I like to say, because it is so fantastic for your womb and for helping you regulate your cycle. And that's
mm,
wherever you are in your cycle, right? Like if you shouldn't take it when you're pregnant. But if you are menstruating, but even if you are, you're in your second spring or menopause, it's still very
mm,
beneficial for your womb. But my like go-to blend, like something that I take every day is roses, chamomile, and lemon balm. And I refer to lemon balm as the silly sister. I love her to
mm,
death, and she reminds me that silliness and laughter is also sacred and is also holy because what she does in the body is she helps boost your mood, she clears your mind, she settles you into this feeling of like, oh, I feel good again. I feel young. I feel alive. And then chamomile is so nourishing. It's also, again, anti-inflammatory. So whether you're drinking it as a tea or you're putting it on your
mm,
skin, it's gonna like give you those amazing properties. And then roses. Roses help open your heart. They connect you to Mary
mm,
Magdalene, Aphrodite, really like the complexity of who we are as women too. Like roses are used for grief and then also for love, which we kind of know like grief is really a continuation of
Mm,
love. But you can, it's just, she has so many qualities. So she's good for like heart, cardiovascular health, the womb, also the skin. I mean, you can like drink your beauty.
mm,
So those are the three that I use, and I use them on the skin and in tea.
mm.
You're also you customize tea as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
And I love that and I feel as though I push it a lot behind the
Yeah.
scenes because when my friend had a child, I
Mhm,
wanted to give her something for her
Mhm.
and really customized. And yes, I could go purchase a gift card for a facial, or I could, you know, I mean, go buy flowers or something. But when you and I were talking, we had come up with or you had shared that you could throw together just if you want I could just because I think I was asking you because I thought oh maybe I'll go someplace and get her these herbs and then you said oh I could just throw together a blend for you and let me tell you, it was so beautiful, so customized. My friend loved it. And so I'm wondering if also just to let people know the customization, if I'm coming to you and saying, hey, could you create a tea for me? What is your process like? That's my example of my friend who's postpartum, but what's the process for that?
So yeah, I use that as one of my offerings. So similar to a channeling session, it would be a channeling session with a product. So I'm channeling the tea. So you come with your questions. We talk a little bit about your health. I want to see, your charts and like talk about and just kind of like be in your energy a little bit. And it will just kind of naturally come through. Because again, going back to herbs have a lot of the same healing properties, which is one of the things that I love about them so much because it really shows that no matter where you are in the world, Mother Nature is
mm,
giving you that same medicine. It just doesn't look the same because we live in different climates. We have, we're different people, but the medicine is always the same. So it's like, why would I use, rosemary in one blend as a nervine when I could use, skullcap, which has similar properties, settles a busy mind, helps with memory function as well, which rosemary does, but they have different spiritual properties. They have different spirits. And like when I think about health, I don't just think about physical health because health starts in the mind. Right. So we have to think about what's going on in your mind, what's going on in your spirit, and then how is it showing up in the body. And so that's really why. And I have blends that I go to that I've been thinking about like putting up on my Etsy storefront. But the thing is what I've noticed, the general blends don't usually sell as well because I think I'm a
mm,
specialist. I think I'm really supposed to be customizing these things and teaching people how to work with their own energies. And like if a plant is calling to you, that's your plant ally. And that should be something that's explored. I just had a really beautiful client session last week. And even before I met with her, because this is someone who I knew fairly well. So I tried not to think about our upcoming session before it happened because my channel will just like start
mhm,
opening and like information will flood in. I'm like, wait, wait, But it was before I got on that call, Damiana appeared, which Damiana is a beautiful
mm,
flower. It's native to the Caribbean and South America and Mexico. And its leaves are used for all kinds of like womb healing. It also boosts the libido. It's good for like mostly like sexual grief, so sexual trauma, that kind of stuff. But it came through so clearly. So it's like we weren't even doing like a tea blend session. It was just like spirit was like, this herb could really help her. And she, just please mention it. So it was like, we got through the channeling session. I was like, okay, also you need to get some like Damiana. You put it in your bath, you put it in your tea, like, you know.
Oh my gosh, you could be. I'm just gonna follow you around with the camera. Who is the Long Island medium where she'd just be in
Yeah.
a random store and be like,
No,
"Excuse me, you could be that lady, but for herbs and plants." Just saying calendulum, like
no, but
just in
that's
their ear.
right. But that is like one that's the thing that I've been like trying to work with because I too often will just like dump
Mhm.
information on people who are just like, well, I didn't ask. And so I'm trying to like, no, no, I should put this more in like a professional manner where like I'm charging for it, right? Because like my whole life, like I'll go up to Jimmy and be like, you need ashwagandha, right? That's what they're telling you. But he's like, girlfriend.
I wanted to ask about the inner altar. What does that look like? What does that mean for you to guide women back to their inner altar?
Yeah, so our channel or the great mysteries of the beyond, of the other side, of the unknown, they aren't something that we access outside of ourselves, which is something Mary Magdalene spoke about and taught. This is accessible within us. We have everything we need
Mhm.
already within us. So the inner altar is really that personal check-in and acknowledgement that your answers are within you, and to if you have something you're going through, if you are, wanting guidance, you have questions, you you can consult yourself first,
Mhm.
and you should consult yourself first. And it really speaks to you don't need to buy a bunch of
Mhm.
stuff. You don't need this, you don't need to smudge, you don't need the incense, you don't actually need the
Mhm.
crystals or the oils, or even, I mean, I'm out here advertising myself, right? But to be honest, you don't need any of it. Like you have everything you need within
Mhm.
you. And I'm really passionate about speaking about that and acknowledging that because people who don't have resources right now can still
Mhm.
heal,
Mhm.
right? Like you do not have to go do the fancy thing, pay all the money. Like you're here right now in this moment. You have breath in your lungs.
Mhm.
You have stardust permeating within you. You are the altar. You are the goddess. And simply acknowledging your
Mhm.
holiness gives you those like little breadcrumbs from spirit of like, I can continue. Now the next step. I'm in the next step. You know what I mean?
At times we we look to those things, like I used the example as you were speaking earlier in our conversation of sometimes it's just the tea that you're drawn to because you need that little bit of soothing to your nervous system so that you can have a little bit of space to see what else is in there. Like we need that little like something to hold the door open for us to
Mhm.
step through for ourselves. And then once years later, you realize, oh, actually, it was all just speaking to each other. It was just like this constant conversation of like my intuition was telling me this. And yes, it was coming from the outside, perhaps, but it was all so deeply connected. The conversation itself so far today has really opened up some of the things that I think I've known to be true and don't let myself. So, for example, this call to Mary Magdalene for years and knowing it, letting
Yeah.
myself go there, deep
Yeah.
dive into the research. I have Mary Magdalene anointing oil, things like that, but not fully embracing it because there's always going to be for a lot of people in varying degrees this kind of block of oh, that's for someone else because they are this, ooh, I'm so witchy and all the things. And not that I'm not, but we tell
Yes.
ourselves these things. And so it's really lovely to feel that reflected back and also resonating with a lot of what you're saying too. I'm really drawn to traditional Chinese medicine and to Taoism, what you were saying about feeling the tingle up your right leg and then it coming through is such a beautiful
Mhm.
reflection of so much in that practice, whether it's qigong or tai chi. You're pulling from the earth into your body and then you're pulling from the heavens down. And it's so I love when all of these themes are reflected throughout different origins, but they all really speak the same language. So I just love that so much. And I had to bring that up too.
Yeah, and we were just talking about on the episode with Nancy and havening and tapping, she was talking about that same similar theme of, the inner knowing and knowing yourself. And she was talking about, right, it's getting back into your body too and feeling your body. And she was saying,
Yeah.
a toe twitching or, something going on. But when we are not in tune with our bodies, that can show up a lot of different ways, as we know. And so, again, this is why it's been so expansive to connect with you, Liz, is because as this three line two, I get to hear and see how it comes up for you real time, which then makes it present. For me,
Yeah.
it's like just the
Mhm.
validation of being more aware of like where I'm feeling in my body,
Hmm.
when it's coming up, what's going on in the moment, and
Yeah.
having someone I can also bounce back and forth those thoughts with.
When you become more open, like you said, a channel, and I never really use those words to describe myself because I haven't, right? But I do resonate with being a vessel for things to come through. And I think the more open you become to it, to more aware, more accepting, you start to just spot the synchronicities faster. So when you were talking about your blue lotus with the tallow, oh, and honey,
Yeah.
because obviously with Mary Magdalene, it's really you can't really talk about Mary Magdalene without talking about Isis. And it's funny because literally this Friday I was with a client. I was talking to my coaching client, and he was like, "I'm working on this new candle that's an Egyptian temple," and I was like, my heart was like, "Oh my gosh, I feel really
Oh,
excited by this." And so it's really beautiful to,
yeah.
when you spot those synchronicities that just continue to like put things in front of you, like you said, like
Mhm.
Hecate, like nudging things in front of you. Like, yep, we've been here this whole time. And
Yeah.
Getting the free reading. That is the thing is I forget verbatim what you said, Liz, but my belief is source, universe,
Right.
what's meant for you won't miss you. And I think Nancy said this also. You can go kicking and screaming,
yeah.
or, but you'll continue to see those things keep coming out, right? And that's a beautiful journey to be on.
Yeah, this is so and Michelle, what you were saying about like Taoism, like I didn't know that. That's so incredible. Because listen, I'm not out here reading, right? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
like a lot of people have like a million spiritual books, but like I just do what calls to me, but it's so
Hmm.
fascinating though to hear you talk about it because I'm like, oh my gosh,
Hmm.
I'm doing it. It is. I'm doing the thing.
I'm doing the thing. Yeah.
And
It's it's the thing, Liz, where we talk about the dynamic with Michelle's two line and my three
yeah.
line is that when we have to experience it, it's almost like Michelle is putting together these ahas for you, and now you're
Yes.
like, oh yeah, now I see it
Yeah.
because I've experienced it so many ways. What a joy
Yeah.
for me to just sit back and watch that click for you as well. We want to get a little bit more personal with you, but what lingering thoughts, sentiments, and Michelle, questions might you have before we transition?
We've talked about the services that you offer. We've talked about the oils, fireside healing oils, about the herbal coven. But what are, for anyone listening that they're sparked and really activated and want to work with you, what are the services that you offer?
Okay, yeah. So currently I offer a channeling session. So a 1 hour channeling session. Um, which we talked about a little bit, looks like straight channeling or a little bit of tarot. And then I'm in the midst of like adjusting my services. So the next one that I have is channeling with a product. So
Mhm.
whether that be a tea blend or an oil. And then I do have an Etsy storefront as well. So I have Aphrodite oil is like a crowd favorite. So I
Mhm.
always have that up and offered. And then I do a Hecate face cream as well. And then I have Herbal Coven, which is a monthly workshop that I do at Flor de Vida. So I'm taking a break July and August, but I'll be resuming in September. And so Herbal Coven, it is like a 2 hour workshop where I combine all of my favorite things. And so we talk about medicinal properties of a plant within like, and we do like a plant within a theme. So
Mhm.
for example, March was chamomile and fear. So chamomile, we know, is like the best like anti-anxiety, calming, beautiful flower that helps us
Mm,
face our fears. So talk about the medicinal properties, the spiritual properties. I do a channeled meditation. And for this one, it was aimed at like unblocking some of those fears, like letting them
mhm,
go so that you can move bravely forward. And then we end with creating something, which is
mhm,
part of that ritual. So we have this subconscious meditation where we have all of these ruminating thoughts. We've sort of lifted things out of our subconscious, and then we come out and we create something with our hands. So we kind of get it out of our head into a product that we're making in a way of alchemizing that energy. And then you use
mhm,
that product at home, whether it be a body scrub to get off that, sticky
mhm.
energy or an oil to anoint yourself.
Mhm.
So it's like it's my baby, my whole thing, my other baby.
Yeah, that's really incredible. That whole experience is amazing.
And more to come. I know you'll be continuing to create and evolve, and there's just so much more. I can't wait to see where you go because I've done some personal rituals with you as well. And I've got my favorites that I know behind the scenes. I keep
Yeah.
saying like, you should do this, 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 this,
I
this,
know
this.
more is
So I
more is
think,
coming.
yeah, where can people find you?
So the best place to find me is on Instagram. My handle is at
Mhm,
Fireside Healing, and you can message me or my email is up there too. And if anyone who may be interested in my services or even just interested in like a tea or an oil, just shoot me an email. I am very open and receptive to talking to people. So slide into my
mhm.
DMs or shoot me an
Yeah,
email.
beautiful. And that'll be a great way to keep up to speed with your offerings and what you
Mhm,
have out there.
Yeah.
Let's jump into a little bit more of the personal. Let's get into our rapid fire questions where we can get to know you a little bit more and have our listeners get to know you a little bit more. Michelle, I'll let you start with the rapid fire since I hang with Liz quite often and I know more about her. I'm interested which one of our rapid fire questions you're feeling called to throw out to have her answer today.
Any memorable feedback or anything that you've heard from someone that you've worked with that really stands out for you?
Oh yeah, that I should charge more.
Yes,
No,
yes.
really. So that's the most consistent thing was like, oh, you're really because right now it's $66. And we're like, I would have paid, but that's my worthiness and like the money and the value. And also I think too, I don't realize because because with claircognizance, when information comes through, it feels like it is so
Mhm,
obvious to me that it must be so obvious to everyone
mhm,
else, and not really realizing how valuable insight and guidance really can
mhm,
be, especially if we're going through something where we're like really anxious, or stressed out, or we're in fear or lack. Because oftentimes, like when we're in those spaces, our own channels and our own intuition can be a little
mhm,
shaky. So, yeah, just really like that feedback for me is like, hey, what you offer is really valuable.
mhm, mhm.
You should acknowledge that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and also I think when you're doing the type of work that you do, sometimes when it comes so natural and when it feels like it's such a part of you, like you would in theory in a world where money didn't exist and we exchanged, you would probably do it for not for free, but like you would be taken care of by the village and all of your needs, all of your material needs would be taken care of, right? If there wasn't that
Yeah.
monetary exchange, at least that's what I sense. And I can resonate with that. There's an aspect in the two line that is like what you said. I don't know why I know, but I know.
Mhm. Yeah.
Any book or podcast or anything you've listened to recently that had a really significant impact for you?
Yeah, so You Are a Channel by Sarah Landon is I just finished it and was so impactful. I didn't know I would get so much out of it because it's such an easy read and it's such a short book, but it affirmed so many things that I was experiencing and feeling about my own channel and just not fully realizing that that was part of channeling and being a channel. And it was, yeah, just powerful to have that, like almost like that mirror of like she's writing down what she's experiencing, and I was like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
me too. And there was a moment, I started reading it before I did my nettle herbal coven, where we explored nettle, and the theme was inspired action. And I assumed that I would be channeling Lilith, because I make a Lilith oil with nettle, and nettle is like Mars energy. It's very protective. And I attribute those things to Lilith when I work with her. But who came through previously, like a couple of days before in meditation, was Saint Francis of Assisi. And I was raised Catholic, but no longer, see myself as being Catholic. I don't even think about saints, anything like that. And he came through so clearly, and there was part of me like, oh, I can't, what? No, I can't, so much resistance, right?
Yeah.
Um, and then I'm reading her book, and she talks about how she channeled St. Francis. Like it was literally like I opened the page and it was St. Francis, and I was like, "Ah, you really were, you stinker."
It's like
Yeah.
that cartoon image of Spider-Man, like the three pointing at each other.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
This was you.
This isn't one of our rapid fire questions, but I think it's a interesting way to kind of start to close out our conversation is what is the word witch? What does that symbolize? What does that mean for you?
Yeah, so witch is such a delicious, incredible term for me. It feels so good because I have been called a bitch probably since I was like 8. Like many people who meet me want to call me names. I trigger
Mhm.
people. And so that word for me, and then, other words that you call women, really like hung heavy on me. And I had them in my mind for so long. And when I started exploring the term witch, or, exploring what witchcraft was, it was this invitation really to like reclaim all of these other words that I had been called that were demonized, like
Mhm.
slut, a demonization of sacred sensuality, right?
Mhm.
Bitch, demonization of my sacred power or
Mhm.
sacred rage. And witch was a reclamation of all of that, of like my power, my wisdom, my medicine. And it also speaks to my soul. I've lived many lives before this one, and many of which were as a witch and,
Mhm.
this wise medicine person. And witches were never, these like mean, horrible old ladies who
Mhm.
eat children, right? Like witches, or, term witch comes from witchy, Old English, which means wise one, medicine
Mhm.
woman, wise woman. And so it's really alchemizing that and taking it from like this negative place to like, no, a witch is a medicine woman. She's a doula, she is a midwife, she has
Mhm.
it's all of that.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. The theme of women rebirthing themselves
Yes.
and alongside one another has just been so resonant lately, especially a lot of people we speak with. And so obviously something is really, really stirring in the ethers and the
Yes.
collective.
It's our time.
And it
Hmm.
was it was so impactful, I think, right, and I didn't know your definition of witch, but what it was for me is you standing in your power, and you get to call
Mhm.
yourself what you want
Hmm.
to call yourself. And it didn't matter what my definition was, that or society's definition, but that's why I think I called Michelle and just said, this energy's so cool. I think I found my people here because, yeah, just taking that power back, and specifically what I work on is being
Mhm.
seen authentically, being heard authentically. And so it was so expansive for me to not only see you stand in front of a group and call yourself that, and also get to understand now even further why you chose to attach to the word. I'm trying really hard not to use the word label because I don't want to label, but it's really interesting and that's really cool. And it does feel like taking that power back and also just to note that it's super expansive for others
Yeah,
looking to find a
thank
voice is where
you. And I
I'm at.
love that you mentioned the fear of being seen and the fear of being heard because those are witch wounds,
Hmm.
really. And I mean, the fear of being seen, because if we are seen in our authenticity, that could be dangerous for us. The witch trials, they lasted like 500 years throughout
Hmm.
Europe. There was this whole horrible book called The Hammer of Witches, written by a German clergyman who essentially described what a witch was, which was a woman
Hmm.
in her authenticity, who was alive, who was wise, who didn't want to be complacent. And he said, those are witches, and this is how we hunt them, and this is how we torture them. So
Yeah.
think about, we're all here today, but we've lived many lives. So if it doesn't affect you ancestrally, it could absolutely be affecting you through a past life lens. And we're also, there is still witch hunts happening, right? Like anytime
Hmm.
a woman wants to be herself or, be sensual, express her rage. Like we get the hammer from society in some way. So I
Hmm.
think we all really have that like fear of being seen, fear of being heard. And if by my calling myself a witch and owning that and like being in that power, yes, it feels good for me, but if it also feels good for you and lights something up in you, I'm complete. I'm whole.
What does self-love mean to you?
Self-love is the first love.
Mm.
The love of self is the most important type of love. The relationship you have with yourself is the seed from which your whole tree of life grows. And I learned that intensely, I think, when I became a mother, because when we're in our maiden, the lesson is to learn to love the self. When we
Mhm.
are in the mother, the lesson is to learn to love others. But
Mhm.
if we don't love ourselves, and then we're in this place where we need to love others, it can get a little sticky and tense, and that's where a lot of the friction happens. So I didn't know how to love myself for, I think I would say like most of my life. And then pregnancy happened and the dark night of the soul happened. And it was like, spirit was like, this is when you learn to love yourself. And because I now love myself, I honor myself, I value myself, it's the reason why I'm speaking to you
Mhm.
now. It's the reason why Florida Vita, the womb spot, opened itself up where I can have a coven. It's the reason why I have clients. The more that you love yourself and honor who you truly are, the world will open up for you in miraculous ways.
100%. And your fireside healing, I think, is in its name, not only are you a fire sign, but it feels very much, like you said, a reclamation in this aspect of the witch wound of through fire is such rebirth and reclaiming that. And that's super powerful. And helping other women do that too is so, so incredible.
Thank you.
Well, just thank you so much for your time today. And if you are at all curious about any of the topics that we've discussed today, I highly encourage you to go find Liz at Fireside Healing, explore her work, reach out if you have any questions. Her work is a chef's kiss, 10 out of 10, and impactful in my world. Thank you, Karmic Mirror Communities, and
Thank
thank you, Liz Pratt. We
you.
honor you and we see you, and thank you for sharing your
Thank
light
you.
with our
Thank
community.
you. This was beautiful.
Thanks for tuning in. If you resonate with today's conversation, connect with us on Instagram at Karmic Mirror Podcast and send us a message.
And don't forget to subscribe wherever you listen. And if you're loving Karmic Mirror, we'd appreciate a glowing review or share with someone who could benefit.
As we close, remember, life is not a one-size-fits-all approach. How are you honoring your unique path? Stay curious and always be kind to yourself. Until next time on Karmic Mirror.